So when you give up striving and ceasing for that, and you can figure out what you actually need for your family, and then from a business standpoint, what makes you happy, it allows you then to say no to things.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. We just got home from school and I'm getting my boys settled and, you know,
All the stuff that we do. Yeah, I get it.
chaos before you're like, oh my
I
gosh.
get it. Oh my goodness. Well, that's awesome. You just picked them up from school? Oh yeah, because it's what, 3:30 or what time is it your time? Yeah.
3:33. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Aw.
I just picked him up from school. We got home, I don't know, 6 minutes ago. And now it's the like, okay, you guys, I have a work call. Please play. Of course, then my 5-year-old starts melting down.
Oh
It's
yeah. All this stuff, it always happens. I know. Well, so just that you know, my husband just left, and so my kids are here, and hopefully they won't come down. But even if they do, and even if yours come in, it's totally fine because I think that both you and me have been very open on our businesses about like our kids are our kids and it's a part of our life. And if they come in, they come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, when I was like, oh, I'm gonna switch to YouTube because it's like I can edit out disaster like at time. Like, yeah, you have to do it with it that way or you don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us today. I am so excited for everybody to get to meet you and to learn a little bit about you. Stephanie and I have been friends for a couple of years now, and it's just been incredible to see her journey. And she has actually been a coach and mentor in my life as well. And Stephanie, could you tell us what it is that you do specifically for people?
Yeah. So I help small business owners grow their influence and profits online using social media strategies that actually work. Digital marketing strategies also for the people that aren't big social media folks, and really just move people through the process. And then in that of developing their business. And that I've also started doing website design for people as well. So it's kind of morphed. So really helping people with digital marketing and just how to build a successful business.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. So, how did you get to where you are now? Because you used to be in the military, right? So,
yeah,
how
so
did you get to what you're doing?
yeah, so it all my as I like to say, like my real adult job, even though this is very much an adult job, my business is a business. But my real adult job, I was a physical therapist in the Army. And so I like to tell people, marketing at its finest is really just actually great problem solving. And I've been problem solving as a career now for over 18 years. So it's been a hot minute, which just makes me feel really old to say that. But so it's been a hot minute of doing marketing in the sense of like problem solving people through a process to get their desired end result. And it used for about 10 of those years, it was as a therapist. And the end result was getting healed from an injury. And I was having to sell them on exercises and maybe pain in the process. And so when I switched into marketing, it really became a natural flow because most people want to make money, they want to be
Yeah.
successful. So it was a little bit of an easier sell at times than what I did as a therapist. So all God used it all. That's what I can see in the story.
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit of your story of when you started online. So, when you originally started your online career, did it look like how it does now? What did that beginning look like for you?
Oh, not at all. Like I had zero in like if you had asked me 10 years ago if I would be doing this, I would have been like, you're crazy. Like I don't even know how to like be on a video. Any of it. I didn't know how to do anything with a website. So I got started in network marketing. I'm completely proud of that. I believe in the industry. I think it's amazing. Um, and it really simply was like, hey, love some products. And then it was like, my mom wanted to buy them. I was like, oh, you could buy them from me. I was like, it was one of those, I could get my products for free. And within about 6 weeks of starting, I found out that I really enjoyed the marketing piece and then
Mm,
was also kind of decent at it. And I also did get plugged in to coaching, coaches helping me and teaching me attraction marketing. Man, within 3 weeks of starting, separate of the company I was in and everything. And so it just all kind of flowed. So there was no big plan to become
mm,
to start my own marketing business. And now it's really morphed. I work with more small business owners than I do network marketers. Never planned on designing websites for people.
yeah.
So it really morphed through the years and really just being flexible with taking into account what I enjoyed doing and what was doing well in the marketplace at the time, right? Like what people
Mhm.
want.
Yeah.
And then just being willing to listen to God's leading in that, right? And not just be set on, oh, hey, this is how I'm going to do it, but being like, oh, okay, like I think there's a path here. Can I stick to it and find it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, at before we actually started recording this interview, we kind of joked around about, our kids maybe popping in and out of this interview and how we've kind of just incorporated that as just a part of what we do anyhow. You have a couple children and you have grown your business around them since your youngest was a baby, or what? I don't
Yeah.
even remember.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like to have kids without having a business. So I started my
Oh,
network marketing. I started my first online business when Xavier was about 6 weeks old. And then I started marketing for my marketing business when I was 9 months pregnant with Jake, who is 5 now. So my business is about to turn 5 years old. So it's kind of crazy. Uh, like just doing this with kids, doing it messy. I know that's kind of like a cliche word, but it really just means being willing to be super flexible,
mm,
um, doing the work when it's maybe inconvenient and not our favorite time, right? Flipping the switch from being mom to then all of a sudden being presentable for an interview and doing the things,
hmm.
just learning how to show up and navigate both roles. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how have you managed to balance work life with family life? I mean, we know that idea of balance is kind of a weird word to use
Right.
anyway, but
Right. Well, right, because we know it's really an imbalance, right? Like at times it's very work focused, right? Like in the
Mhm.
moment right now, it's like all about this, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, look at the green dot. And then when I'm with my boys, being like all in there. And so I think I have like super strict boundaries at this point because I've been doing it for a hot minute and I've kind of learned to not blurry the waters. So today is a
Mm,
Monday when we're recording this. And when I hopped online this morning, like I hadn't checked my email or my Facebook since Friday, end of business, right? So I've
yeah.
gotten really good at like establishing when I am online and offline.
Mm,
So then I have that time with my family. And same thing with like the week. And it might look different for you, right? Like it
yeah.
depends on like work schedules and spouse schedule. So that's part of it. And then I think the other part is getting really clear on, speaking to a fellow believer, and hopefully many of you watching this, like if you love the Lord, really not buying into what the world sells you as your idea of like perfect or success,
Yeah.
right? So the world is going to tell you can create your utopia here and now. And I believe that to be like a total lie, right?
Mhm.
No matter how much striving and success I have, I'm never going to create this perfect world in the moment. And so when you give up striving and ceasing for that, and you can figure out what you actually need for your family, and then from a business standpoint, what makes you happy, it allows you then to say no to things too. So in my business, I've really scaled back and been okay with the fact that, I'm not going to grow a 7-figure business. I don't want to. I don't want what comes with that. And people might be like, Steph, you're just saying that because of what? And it's true. I really don't. Like, I know the like hours I'm willing to commit to this. And
Mhm.
then at the end of the day, once I hit those, it's like, I'm done. Like, that's all my family needs.
Yeah.
So really, those are hard questions to figure out though. And then also listen, right? And there's a lot of leaning on the Lord in that too, as to
Yeah.
what that looks like.
No, I think all of that is such good, sound advice. Establishing what we consider success for ourselves and what we want our life to look like, and then building the business around that. Because I'm the same as you, Stephanie. I'm the same. I don't want to build a seven-figure business, not because I don't want the money. Like, yeah, that'd be fantastic, but there is so much more that comes along with it. And it's like, are
Yes.
you willing to have that lifestyle? Are you willing to do the things that it takes to get that? And at this point in my life, with small children at home, I'm not. I'm not ready to give that up.
And also enjoyment, so I've
Yeah.
gone from having at times multiple people who work for me. Right now, I only have one person who works for me, which I'm very happy with. And so as your business grows, yes, you can outsource and you can hire on help or different things like that. But then it's a point where the work that you do changes. And it's like, do I want to be in management mode of people? Or is this something that when I started my business, it was like, oh, these are things that I really enjoy doing or, have fun with. But it's like when you start to scale, that can look very different. And so, again, being smart with that and being like, now I'm thankful I've been doing this long enough. So I do have consistent income, recurring income coming in that I can try different things out. And I've done that over the last couple of years. And then at the end of the day, be like, did I really enjoy that? Like, is it something that I can tweak the offer, or is it really something I just need to throw out? Because even though I maybe made great money doing it, at the end
Mhm.
of the time, at the end of the 12 weeks or whatever, I was like, wow, like I don't really want to do that again. And so listening to that as you're crafting and figuring out what your business looks like is really important. And at that's where I start to see, oh, it's like, oh, that isn't worth the money, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
so not to say, and it again just depends on the flow of things. Not to sound wishy-washy, but it's going to change, right? Our businesses morph and change as we
Right.
do. And so we have to be willing to go with that because the enjoyment piece is such a huge part of why we're even entrepreneurs.
So, one of the things that I have always admired about you is that you have been very authentic, right? I know this word authentic is like this thing that's thrown around, but when I think of somebody who's authentic online, it's your name instantly comes to my mind because I remember like back in the day, especially like you would come with your baby on your hip, in the carrier, and you're like feeding them and talking to the camera, and your hair is a mess or whatever, and I think there's so much beauty to that, and I think so many people related to you. Do you have any like advice or words about authenticity online?
Well, I think, you know, a friend and I were talking about this yesterday. Um, and it's just that ability when you show up as yourself, you have so much more confidence, right? Like, because I mean, obviously, the opposite of authenticity is like being fake or whatever. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with wanting to like look good in front of a camera or, like put your best foot forward. Like I completely get it. Right before this, I was like, ooh, let me touch up my eyeliner, right? So I don't look as tired, right? Um, so there's nothing wrong with that. But then at the same point in time, like the best thing about what your business is and what you offer to the market that is different than everyone else is you. And so really leaning into the you-iness of you, like I think that helps, like I and so just embracing that, right? Like I have never been, growing up in Alaska, right? So we're Alaska buddies, but like I have never been like this uber into fashion person. Now there's nothing wrong with that, right? But like I got a t-shirt on right now, like a hat, right? Like I have sweats on. That's like me and how I roll. And so when you can be okay with that, like you're gonna find your people then, and it makes it so enjoyable. So whatever it is, right? Like there's no wrong or right here, I think, with this component of being authentic. It's just being willing to like own it and then
Mhm.
know that those are your actually your greatest strengths, right?
Yeah.
Like, um, So that's what I would tell someone is just like, and then sometimes that can take a little bit of self-reflection too, because it's really hard to be like, wow, like what makes me me, right? Like what are the things that I like, right? Like
Mhm.
leaning into that. And I don't want to get into the uber trendy, like just do you vibe kind of thing, because that's a whole nother thing. But when it comes to authenticity, there is a component of it where it's
Yeah.
like, if you don't show up with that, it's gonna, at some point, you're gonna be like, man, I can't do this today because it's just not me. Whereas
Yeah.
like when it's you, it's like, oh, this is easy.
Right. Right. Everybody's talking about that whole like how do I feel more confident in XYZ, but it's a lot of it is just because they're just not allowing themselves to show up as their true self and then feel confident in that while learning new skills or
Right,
whatever it is they're
right,
wanting to build confidence in.
right. And also not also always needing that external validation, right? Like to
Mm,
know that, hey,
yeah.
like, you know, to really be okay with the fact that like this is who you are, right? And if
Mhm.
God has given you this purpose, this meaning, this thing
Mm,
to live out, like then do it and know that he's going to show up with you in that. Like,
yeah.
but that you don't then have to like, it's okay then if everyone isn't your cup of tea and everyone isn't jives with you, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with really wanting like people to like you, but at the same point in time, once you're like, oh, everyone's not going to like me, and then you're okay with that, it's okay. Like there's just that level of like peace, contentment with who you are and who your
Yeah.
people are.
Yeah, absolutely. The peace and contentment of knowing like I'm not for everybody and I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone else is, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's what I love, even when I'm doing like clarity calls with people at times or helping if they want to work with me or not. Like, one of my favorite things is like, hey, I'm not going to be at the end of the time, like, be like, you must do this. It's like, this is about seeing if we're a good fit. That's it. Like, if I don't want to work with you, I probably won't say it directly like that, but like, but or you may not be into how I do things, and that's
Right.
fine because then there's going to be someone else. Like that's the beauty of this industry.
Yeah. I think when we realize as well that our business does not need to look like everybody else's, and we figure out, like we said, what feels good to us and what are the things that we want to give and not give, and come to terms with that, I think also that that helps us to show up more of who we are as well. Because we're
Yes.
not trying to build something that's like everybody else's or we think that we're
Yes.
supposed to do. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So Stephanie, what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in online sales?
Oh man, that is such a big question. Oh, Teresa. Okay, let me think. Well, I mean, like, this is when I would start asking them questions in terms of like, and not necessarily like jumping out of the gate with advice, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it would be like, we would take a look and be like, okay, well, like, where are you at? You right? Like,
Yeah.
have you gotten your offer established? Do you even know what that is, right? Like, and it depends, right? Like, if you're coming at it from, say, like an MLM, you already have your offer for the most part, right? We don't need to craft that. So it would be looking at that. Then I'd be checking out like, okay, what social media platforms do you want to be on? Like, are you on them already? Do you have an
Mhm.
established presence? Is that something you still need to build, right? Because that advice for
Yeah.
someone who's established versus starting out is going to be different. Not bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what type of content do you enjoy creating? Because that's going to dictate kind of the route and platform you show up with, say, lead generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm not big into reels or short form content, which may be like, how do you do a business without that? And it's like, well, I actually get a lot of leads from YouTube, and that's doing longer form videos like, something like this. And so, you know, leaning in and finding out those things about the person would be important to then start to put together their like puzzle pieces of their business. So I know that doesn't necessarily answer the question. It's maybe more questions to the question, but that's where I would start.
No, I think that's good. And I think what that shows too is that it's not like a a one size fits all.
Yeah.
It is important to have more details into like what their hopes and desires are, what they want their business again to look like. And then going from there. No, I think that's fantastic. You are skilled in funnels and sales pages and all that kind of techie guru stuff that many actually struggle with. So I'm curious, um, when it comes to automation processes in your business, so it could be funnels, but it could be email or it could be, fill in the blank. But what do you think is a great place for people to start with for automation? Or at least like, what do you think has been most helpful in your business regarding automation? How's that?
Okay. So I think first and foremost, like say you have nothing automated right now. And again, some of this is based off of those questions that we just asked, right?
Yeah.
Like what platform are you on or things like that. Because like if you're
Mhm.
on YouTube, you definitely want to be like pushing them somewhere, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise nothing's going to happen. So I know for me, like if I look back at my story, when I started with an email list maybe 8 weeks into my business. Like again, I didn't really know anything of what I was doing. It was maybe, like 25 of us on the emails, but I'm so proud of that because that was the start that then just kind of grew. And so I would say email to me is probably like the best place to start. And that can be something as having then as simple as like a tiny little landing page, right? So that's like a link that someone would click on that would say, hi, like, you know, do you want a 20% off coupon? Put in your name and email. Or I have this, do you want to receive emails from me that I send out every week? Like put in your name and email, right? It can be very, very simple. But then you begin to start to have, right, like some leverage, because that was the big thing for me with doing this business with kids was how can I create more leverage in my business and be one to many, right? But not lose that personal touch. And you can do that really well through video, and you can do that really well through like a written email. And I know people might be like, oh my gosh, email is like of the dinosaurs, but like everywhere has email, right? Like we see, it's just part of life and business. Everyone has an email address. And so that's to me like the bread and butter. Like a serious business owner, like they all have email.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. It's so interesting too, because I mean, when it comes to email, I've heard both sides. I've heard you don't need an email list until you have X amount of followers, or email is what you definitely need. But I think it all comes back to what you just said there at the end. Like everybody who takes their business seriously has an email list.
Yeah. Like I mean, I remember I bought my domain name like 5 years before I ever got even to online business, just because people that I respected, like in the world, like were like, well, of course you should own your domain name. And I was like, oh, okay, right? Like it was just one of those things. And thank God I bought stephanieparisi.com, right? Like it was just one of
Yeah.
those things where it was like, and I didn't even plan on having a business ever, right? So I think there's just components of it where it's like you just want to set yourself up like you actually like are professional, right? Like you
Yeah.
have your domain, you have your email. I was just helping someone do it this last week, which is fun because now I get like local clients. So we were sitting down together doing it and like uh just side by side with our laptops, and I was
That's
showing
great. I
her,
love
and
that.
it was like $2.99 a month for her professional email or something. It was super inexpensive when she was buying it to sign up the first time, right, for the year.
Yeah.
And so I just think those are things where it's just that is just part of doing your business and doing it well. And, everyone's going to have their opinions on like when you should start doing different things. But again, this goes back to like looking at your business and the time constraints and your goals and what you want it to be like. Like for me, the biggest thing with my business from day one, because I started when I had little kids, time was always a thing, So
Yeah.
that's why I learned attraction marketing, because people would reach out to me. It saved me time. That's why I started doing like YouTube videos, because it would keep working for months and years and save me time. That's why I started doing email, right? Like, because I could write one email and then all of a sudden reach a bunch of people. It saved me time. And so that was personally like one of my biggest struggles, was how to do this with the constraints I have. So I would say that's where for each individual, it's really looking at and being like, okay, well, what are your top things that make doing your business really hard? And I don't mean that in like a, oh man, you shouldn't have any hard. It's like, no, you're going to have some things that make it really hard. Like, what are those? And then you set your business up to eliminate some of that hard.
So at the end of our show, we like to ask our guests a question that is either given by a prior guest or an audience member. So are you open to receiving a question?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. If you could do it all, sorry, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh man. That's such a hard question, because it's like then your doubt, like, even in the really, really hard, sucky things, it's like there have been so many lessons
Yeah.
or that have grown my faith, or right, like even, like a personal example, this last, like 2023 was like by far like my business, like it had grown a lot and I had had 10K months before 2023, but then last year, like it exploded. Um, but then with that came like new challenges. And so it's one of those things that like especially like I don't know, like this year has been all about tax strategy and all these different things where I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, this is so out of my element." And what I say, oh, I don't want to have these things happen. So then, because then I wouldn't have those, like right now, that then means so much more trust in God and growth personally, that I don't know if I would sit here and say I would do anything different, because it's all part of it, right? I'm really intentional with my time and the boundaries I have, like even on my phone or social media, because of times of not really having those good boundaries, right? Like I look back and I'm like, oh man, when Xavier was like 1 and 2, when I first got started online, I spent so much time on social media. And sure, I have some regret with that. Like I will be totally
Sure.
transparent. Um, but if I hadn't had that, then I wouldn't have learned what I've learned to get where I'm at today. And it's like, I mean, like, this sounds crazy, but it's like I was on Facebook last week on my phone for an hour and 14 minutes for the entire week, right? Like, and
Wow.
it's like I teach this stuff, and it's like, but I'm able, and yes, I was on my computer, some online too. So I'm not, but there's just
Right.
levels of like really figuring it out to
Mhm.
how to like have success, what I would define it as,
Yeah.
right? With my
Mhm.
business. I wouldn't have gotten here without the suck and
Yeah.
the like mistakes. So can I say, oh, I wish I could do it differently? It's like, not really. Is that okay? Like that's
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, can I
Yeah.
ask, would you do anything differently? Would you be like, oh man, I wish I could eliminate this? Because it's like, look at where God has
Yeah.
led you.
Yeah. No, I mean that the only things that I would think like could I do differently is the times that I missed out being like you said, like the earlier times of being on social media because I thought I had to post 4 times a day, like those times. But like you said,
But then
I'm in
that
a complete
also helped
agreement.
grow my business. Like it's
Yeah.
like, there's levels of like,
Yeah.
you know, like that working hard and the hustle component. I mean,
Yeah.
people can downplay it, but there's still that level of like, well, that's how I then grew and learned.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't say that like I wouldn't be where I'm today, like in all aspects, not just in my business, but in my family
Yeah.
life and all the things
Mhm.
without like those things where I'm like, oh, I wish it wouldn't have had to be that way. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing about like marriage is a great example, right? It's the same
Yeah.
way. It's like you think of those like really hard
Yeah.
seasons with your spouse, but then
Hmm.
you're like, oh my gosh, it's so good now, right? Like,
Yeah.
or Lord willing, depending on whatever season each person it is, like
Right.
listening to it's like those are the things where it's like you wouldn't have the like after without those things in the
Right.
midst. And so with
Yeah.
my business, I'm just very grateful that nothing like horrific happened, right? Like in the mistakes, right? Aside from at times just being like, oh wow, like I didn't have good boundaries in play. It's like, well, there's a reason why I'm really good at boundaries
Boundaries
today.
now. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't there's no right or wrong to the question. So
Okay.
you answered it great. And it's really insightful. I agree with you. And I think for most people, if they were to look back at their lives, even if they started like big traumatic events, well, I wish it didn't happen. However, because it happened, it created the person I am now. And hopefully, you know, we've become overcomers and, we've learned through it and everything. But yeah, all of our experience shape who we are now. All of our experiences online and with our business shape the business that we have now. So yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, anything that you would like to share before we go that maybe you didn't get to share if anything was on your mind?
Not really. Just I appreciate you asking me to be on this.
Yeah.
I want to say like not necessarily I don't want to say like this is a plug for you, but I just want to say like I have watched you for, man, well, together working together for 5 years, but then before that, the time and it's just I think that's the thing where you begin to see like it's the ripple effect, right? Like, and I don't even know all the different things that you do and the lives you've touched, but right, like it's just one of those things where it's like when God, like like he talks about like people doing greater things than him because it's the quantity of the things, right? And
Yeah.
it's just really exciting to see like when people lean into their purpose and then continue to listen to him, like
Yeah.
how that grows and then just expands and keeps going and going and going, right? Because even with some of the things early on that like I maybe helped you with social media, it's like, well, look at your business today. And I know you've had so
Yeah.
many other amazing mentors and coaches that have helped you grow. And then your own, let's be real, like the hard work that you put into the things and
Yeah.
do. And then it's just so cool to see. And I think as business owners and as believers in the business industry, it's like not to forget that, right?
Mm.
Like that component of it. And then just the celebration component. Like to me, that's like the best thing ever because it's lives that are just changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's so awesome. I thank you so much for saying yes and for being here. I have you just know I adore you. I adore your mission and how you help people and all the things that you've taught me throughout the years. And I'm just really excited to share you with my audience. So
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Talk soon.
Okay.
The Productive and Profitable channel is all about helping entrepreneurs grow wildly profitable businesses without sacrificing time with their families or the things they love. And we do this through top-notch trainings and community. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications button so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're ready to dive deeper and take your business to the next level, be sure to join our free business community over on Facebook. Simply visit teresataylorcoaching.com and hit the community tab. We can't wait to see you over there.